evening, everybody out in Alberta and Canada and the world. My name is Carrie Lambert, and I welcome you to an online webinar, Evening of Solutions for New Alberta, brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project, also known as APP. Our purpose is to educate, inspire, and unite all Albertans, businesses, and organizations to protect the prosperity, individual freedoms, rights, and sovereignty by empowering the Alberta government to restructure Alberta's relationship with Canada. Of course, we couldn't do this without your help. And if this is your first time watching, welcome. And I hope you find this information engaging and wanting to find out more. And if you're a regular APP webinar viewer, thank you for your support. We couldn't do this without you. APP is member driven with a goal of 1 million plus members to help steer the political process. APP memberships are 1 year for $20, 2 years for $30, 3 years for $40, or you can make a donation at www.albertaprosperityproject.com. And we also have APP merchandise at the albertaprosperitystore.com. So my apologies for not letting everybody know that last week we didn't have a webinar, and that was because it was International Women's Day, and we were out doing events. And I hope that maybe you ended up getting out to do something to celebrate women everywhere. But tonight we have a webinar, and we have a special guest. The webinar is called The Truth About UNDRIP. And UNDRIP is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And our guest is Rayanne Spotted Bull. I'm going to bring her on here in just a second. And just so you know, this is a live webinar that right now it's almost 7:05 Mountain Standard Time on Wednesday, March 15th, of course. And so we encourage you to ask questions and make comments throughout the presentation. And if you do, in your comments, just put 3 question marks before the question. So that way it's flagged and I can quickly view it while I go back through the comments. Now, I also have to tell everyone that Rayanne is up in Northern Alberta. And if you've ever been up in Northern Alberta, you know the internet is pretty spotty. So we'll bring her on camera first. And if it seems to be freezing up, she'll just go on to the audio. And I've already downloaded her PowerPoint presentation. We did this the other day, and it seemed to be a bit of an issue. So I'll be playing it on my end on another computer. I've got a whole bunch of things going on here. So hopefully that solves a lot of glitches. And with that, I'm going to bring Rayanne on now. Hello, Rayanne. How are you? Are you there? Right. There she is. All good? Excellent. How are you doing today?
We're fading in and out.
Are you? Okay. Well, let's give this a shot for a minute or so, and if it seems to be dying, then we'll turn off your camera and we'll go right to the presentation. So, UNDRIP. So, obviously, there's no school to go to courses on UNDRIP. So, how did you get involved, and what's your story?
No. I was privy to it from Vermont. They started having questions because I live on the Blood Reserve, which is actually southern, the largest reserve in Canada. Okay. The natives as to rights and property, according to the document Article 26, I believe. So there was contention starting to mount.
Yeah.
And so I did my research, find out what was going on.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to get oh, awesome. But I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to get you to turn the camera off just because it is eating up a lot of bandwidth there. And we'll bring your pretty face on after we're done here. There you go. Now we can just look at me. Actually, we're not going to just look at me because that's not good.
Okay.
We'll go right to, we'll add this on. Good. So now let's hear, a little bit more about how you got involved in educating yourself on UNDRIP.
People were asking questions about losing their property rights, and they could see the natives were doing a lot of land claims deals. To see and establish their original lands. Mm-hmm. But that process, yes, they did establish them. Hence, our reserve even had the largest land claim that they won. But the government of Canada, as far as can see right now, are in appealing that win that we won.
Okay.
But it's the UN's intention of sustainable sustainable development, where they're trying to take away private landowners, and they're using the native to do it.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Bold claims. You know, we've had conversations like this with a lot of people, and this really is a topic that's going to divide a lot of people, because if you don't understand both sides of what's going on, and maybe there's really just one side, but if you don't understand it, it can be confusing. So hopefully tonight we'll be able to have you explain a few things about what's going on, and you know what the master plan is behind this. Because I got up on the screen here. This is if you went to the basically to the UN website here, and it tells you all about the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, a little historical. They go into a nice video, and actually, you know what? Maybe I'll play just a bit of this video here, just to kind of show you what maybe the plan behind all this was. Like the nice fluffy, everyone feels good about it, and then we'll see what is actually at play here. So let me just start this for a second.
I can't hear it.
No sound? Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we're gonna I'm not sure why there wasn't any sound. Sorry. Really, all they're doing is they're talking about how the benefits of this UNDRIP have actually helped the communities. Obviously, they're talking about Africa, and one of the things that they do talk about is they want to implement all 17 sustainable goals, and I think I want to just find this one here. All the 17 sustainable goals, according to the experts, should all happen at once. Yeah. So no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water, affordable, clean energy. I'll read them all because it is important to know all of them. Decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, which is obviously what we've talked about before. Responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land. It's funny, they don't have life in the air, but they've got peace, justice, and strong institutions, and then partnerships. So that's kind of what their goals are. And, you know, again, on paper, that sounds great.
They look good.
So do you want to jump into your presentation now? Does that kind of make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to just hide this one here, and we'll go back to there. So Rayanne is going to walk us through, and I'm just going to be the servant, just pressing play in the next button. So with that, I will have you take it away, and we don't need to see my face either. So.
Okay. We're going to start off with Matthew 24, verse 43 in the New Testament. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. The thief is a climate action agenda that we all paid for, and the centralized digital ID is what will break up the house. Warning, put your house in order. Next slide. UNDRIP, Bill C-15, United Nations International Declaration on Your Human Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Next slide. What do you think when you see these words, human rights? Most people think of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Next slide. Well, welcome to the new United Nations Human Rights Declaration that is now law in Canada. This is found in the annex part of the document, which is the beginning of the document, which most people overlook, affirming further that all doctrine, policies, and practices based on our advocating superiority of peoples or individuals on the basis of national origin, racial, religious, ethnic, or cultural differences are racist, scientifically false, legally invalid, morally condemnable, and socially unjust. They look at our private land ownership as socially unjust. They called the truckers racists. And when we take things to court, like arresting pastors, we can see that they're condemning them morally, and they're making it very difficult to have them have due process. So they're legally invalid because they're advocating. Okay, next slide. UNDRIP uses the word Indigenous. This is true. Well, according to UNDRIP, Indigenous includes elder, youth, children, women, men, persons with disabilities, gender diverse, and two-spirited persons, which means you and me. It includes everybody. There's no discriminatory.
So indigenous, does that mean like people of the land, or does it mean people that are born on the land, or what?
People that are born on the land. If you have those immigrants come in and they have their kids here, you could call them Indigenous.
Wow. Okay.
I refer to, like for me personally, I look at them, like I said, based on the Canadian Constitution, that in the First Nations or Indian or Aboriginal are the words I prefer to use. I don't like this word.
Okay. That's good to know. Next slide.
Yep. Under UNDRIP, the United Nations requires the state or Canada to combat and eliminate all prejudices, all forms of violence, which is our speaking, our advocating, okay, against the government's attempts to bring reconciliation, not to the First Nations, but to the new International Human Rights Declaration and to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. So if we fight against their political, ideological agenda, we're going to find problems. Next strip. UNDRIP expects government to take all measures necessary to ensure that the laws of Canada are consistent with the Declaration. So who's in charge of this puppy? The UN. Okay, it was declared in force, and so taking all measures necessary means that the rule of law has been redefined. Rule of law is governments taking control of all things for, quote, proper outcomes. In related to the monitoring, so smart technology, oversight, follow-up, recourse, or remedy, and other accountability with respect to the implementation of the Declaration. So they're going to do whatever they're going to do to put into play what it is they need to put in play to accomplish the sustainable developmental goals or the other agendas that they have in line, which doesn't benefit anybody.
So again, the idea is to do all 17 sustainable goals, and you can probably figure out, which ones are done through policing, which ones are done through limiting food, which, that sort of thing. So and basically this was handed, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just continue on here then.
Okay, see UNDRIP Article 29.3 and 30.1. This is one of those articles, or a couple of the articles that are in the document that let me know clarification that they weren't just talking about First Nations or Aboriginal peoples. They were talking and referring to all of us, okay? The state shall take effective measures to ensure, as needed, the programs for monitoring, hence our digital ID that they're planning to enroll, maintaining and restoring the health and Indigenous peoples are duly implemented. Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of Indigenous peoples unless justified by a relevant public interest. Now, when they had that border problem in Ottawa, that was a public interest. So they use not necessarily military, but military force, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And even in Ottawa. And even across the states, they threatened military action to go door to door to make sure people did their mandates and took their shots. They were threatening those things. So we can see that their public interest is to make the public comply with whatever their mandates are, hence the government taking all measures to enforce their acts.
Yeah.
Okay. It also refers to unless justified or freely agreed with and requested by, is in reference to the Alberta Provincial Law Bill 1. That's the Infrastructure Enforcement Act, where they can arrest you without warrant. There's no due process, guilty until proven innocent, fined up to $1,000 to $10,000 or jail time.
Yeah.
So when we're messing with this, I want to mention with the wind turbines. Okay, there's energy coming off those wind turbines. Okay.
Yeah.
But if we put those sky things that go up in the air, and it interferes with the turbines energy coming off of it, that would be infringing on the infrastructure that they put in place. You can be arrested for doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, they're very creative in taking away our rights and freedoms.
Now, because it says arrest without a warrant, no due process, guilty, fines, or jail time, that sounds very similar to what's happening with the boys in Coots. I don't know if you can make a comment on that. Obviously, it's not through the Alberta provincial law. That was through the federal law. But does that have anything to do with that?
It does. It does have some. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna Bill 1. Oh, that's Bill 100. I can't find Bill 1. Okay. Anyway, yes, Bill 1 doesn't let you to go when you're going into a structure of any kind, or you're on a roadway of any kind. That is an infrastructure that the government can say you're infringing on that infrastructure.
You're blocking it, or
exactly
possibly going to harm it.
Exactly. That's why they can. I mean, they can have crazy rules, like you run over a pylon, okay, or
I've seen that. Yeah,
exactly. So they can arrest you based upon their interpretation of what that means for them in that moment in time to justify their action.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're advocating for something that goes against a political agenda, again, that's and you're doing it on their infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you know that they're taking away private land ownership based upon the land claims, okay, that's again infrastructure. So if you go on there and you make a deal with them, say the First Nations makes a deal because they have a contract and they realize that they've been messed with, or it wasn't what they thought it was, when they start to go in there and claim back their rights, we shouldn't have done this. Infrastructure has been established, and they'll be caught up in this new law, making it so that they can't have any more rights. And they don't realize that that's what's about to happen, but that's what's about to happen.
Wow.
Because I know that on the timber line of the Blood Reserve here in Southern Alberta, they have the Shell Corporation, the sour gas pipelines. Okay.
Yeah.
They have lots of infrastructure on the mountain timber line. But if I disagree with that, or someone on the reserve realizes what the tribe and council have done, I would be infringing on that infrastructure, and then it can force me being I shouldn't be there by those rules. And there's no questioning. People won't know what happened to me. They can just do it.
And is that in any land right now? Like, is that specifically for on Native?
Yes.
Native?
Well, they passed that law in Alberta, and they have Bill 100 in Ontario. I haven't noticed any similar legislation in other provinces. But I mean, even if you went to BC, because they passed UNDRIP in BC sooner, rather than like earlier before the federal one was passed. Okay, we can see First Nations going onto their property, telling them not to do the pipeline. And in that process, they were saying, UNDRIP, thinking that they had rights. But in that same process, they were being arrested. So no, it's not. It doesn't guarantee what it is they think it does.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a video. So give me a second here, because I have to actually adjust a few things on my end in order to get this thing to play.
Okay. On June 21st, 2021, UNDRIP, the International Human Rights Instrument, came immediately into force. I wanted this video because it is international, it is global, like you showed Africa, okay? But it gives you an idea how other people are beginning to understand what UNDRIP really will do. Can you hear it?
Can people hear that? Okay, no sound. So what I'm going to do, I actually had this, I figured this might happen. So I have the video on this other screen here, and we're going to do this. Look at this. Always have a backup plan. Okay, there you go. Let's give this a shot.
Amen. Can you hear it? Can you hear?
Still no sound? Still no sound? Sorry there, people. Of course, now I got to skip this commercial. Can we hear it? No? Okay. I'm not quite sure what the issue is and why that happens here. Because obviously we want another video. I'm going to just turn off, again, I'm going to try a bunch of different settings on my end. I'm actually going to turn off my audio altogether, and we'll try that. So if someone can just say yay or nay, and then that way I'll know.
Nay.
No, still not. Oh, yay. Oh, now is nay. No, nay. Nay means no. Okay. Well, I'll briefly say what's going on in this video. It's United Nations over a small area in Utah. Rayanne, you can pop in anytime you want to comment about that as well. And and basically they're saying that they don't have the U.S. rights because this is now the United Nations land. So you can't do anything on there. Rayanne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. United Nations came to Utah and utilized the Salt Palace. Hello?
Check.
Hello?
Rayanne?
Hi.
Yeah, this is in Utah. And so basically they discuss, you know what? I'll play it, but I will say what it says. How about that? Let's do that. Let's see if that works.
Okay.
Is it okay you turn off the camera and then speak?
So the UN officer wants you to turn off the camera.
Do I not have the right to have the camera? I'm not giving you permission to.
Do you have the right to have the camera? Oh, you can hear her now? Okay.
I'm the United Nations Security Officer. Okay.
I can hear it.
This is my city, and so I have a right to film. This is United Nations compound? A United Nations compound? Yes. This is a compound? Yeah. Since Sunday evening, we took over this compound. This is international territory. When you step outside, it's US. Here is international territory. This is UN compound.
The United Nations claims to be the champion of your human rights. Here, they are boasting about how they love the freedom of the press. But notice that in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, They claim the power to deny you any of your rights at their discretion if it doesn't fit their agenda. There were thousands of cameras filming the United Nations that day, activists, journalists, and citizens. But as soon as their security saw that one activist was speaking against the UN's agenda, she was targeted, just like the UN's Declaration on Human Rights says that they have a loophole for. Let's recap what you just saw. The UN set up a compound in the middle of Salt Lake City. The UN says they took over the building. The UN stated that the taxpayer-funded Salt Lake Palace was now international territory where U.S. rights don't apply. The UN stated that the United States was outside the doors of the Salt Palace, and the UN, who at best should have been a guest of Salt Lake, instead acted like an invader and denied a U.S. citizen their First Amendment rights. Should the United Nations be allowed to simply claim territory in the middle of the United States and deny any U.S. citizen any of their inalienable rights? The evidence is clear that the United Nations claims that defending human rights is a complete farce. They have demonstrated their intent to rule, along with their complete lack of respect for our own citizens, for all to see, right here on our own soil. That's not all, but this has all been brought to you by your fellow elected leaders and other prominent Utah officials. The Utah legislature actually paid for them to come here and defended this international compound with your tax dollars. The mayor of Salt Lake City welcomed them with open arms, and the executives of Utah Valley University invited them here shortly after they officially signed up to promote the UN's agenda through the university. Do you know that the United Nations is already writing and passing laws that the state of Utah and Utah's cities are putting into law on behalf of the UN? If you're upset that the Utah legislature and the city of Salt Lake invited this organization to come and trample on your rights, please go right now to UnitedNationsUtah.com and sign the petition, and then share this video on all of your social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more bombshell reports about the United Nations in Utah and what you can do to take back your local government.
So I'm going to stop that there because this video is actually 3 years old. Yep. Utah. And I just want to see UnitedNationsUtah.com. Oh, so it's still active. And that's what my question was, is whether or not they're still actually actively pursuing the petitions. And what's the UN doing in Utah? Targeting youth.
They are.
Reality, your tax dollars at work. So this is obviously still going on. So I'm not sure whether or not we've lost Rayanne or no.
It
Rayanne,
has to go on. Hello? Hello?
I'm going to text her. Again, you always have to have a backup plan.
I'm still here.
Speaking of which, what's your back? Oh, there she is. I was going to say, speaking of which, what's your backup plan? What's your bug out plan? No, we're not doing that yet. So can you speak there, Rayanne?
Can you hear me?
Are you on the mic?
I'm not muted. I'm not muted. But
we can hear
her.
Hear me? Okay, but I can't hear her for some reason. Let me see if I can change my settings.
Sorry.
Oh boy. Sound output. Internal speakers. Settings. Audio.
Are you there?
There we go. Look at that. So I have like 18 steps. So just so everyone knows, this truly is a Carrie production going on right now. So normally we have someone working in the back. We had Shauna, who's no longer with APP. We had Walter, and he's unavailable. And of course, we have our good buddy Chris Scott, who would normally be my guy in the back. And then we end up doing it on a different screen and different computer altogether. And of course, now I have to manage all these things. So I've got different audio inputs, so I don't get feedback, etc. So my apologies for that. But so Were you able to talk all the way through there? And I'm my apologies if I totally missed all that.
No, I didn't talk. I was just listening.
Okay. So, anyways,
Wait
yeah.
for you
So
to
that
do your
was
thing.
the
yeah.
video with United
Utah-
Nations. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would have with it. UNDRIP by Obama in 2006. So they've been playing this game longer than Canada, but they're going to be the same because they're coming after all of our rights through the sustainable development, through net zero. Hence, when Biden says cold winter, he's referring to this puppy. And so, so of course they're fighting it because they know what it takes away their constitution, which is really supposed to be a republic. It's not like that. We're more like a socialist country by nature. So we're, I think, further along in that role than they are, state by state by state. But Utah's losing. A conservative Christian community by my majority. They're fighting and they're not conquering it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's scary because I come from a Southern Alberta community where we're referred to as Northern Utah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we start is like they can't even talk about the Constitution in their parliamentary buildings, or they'll be arrested.
Wow, really? Wow, I didn't know that.
People that watching the government do thing in Parliament when they debate. Yeah, and people with just like "We the People" was on their T-shirt, and they were arrested for having that on their T-shirt.
And that was in Salt Lake City, Utah, or
we're
was
all
that
fighting this
anywhere? Yeah,
I was in Salt Lake City. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So if they're a republic, and if they're losing, we have a harder chance. But it's that keyword international that got me, because when you see international and they refer to it as a compound, guys, Canada's a compound. They've implemented this legislation now, and they've passed, I call them framework bills. 11 is just about what you can say online, but they're already taking things down offline of what you're saying, and they haven't even passed the dang bill. Okay, but they have other frameworks that go along with the sustainable development that takes away our rights. And before they've passed UNDRIP, and they continue to pass more legislation to reinforce it. And so, there's Bill 67, critical race theory.
Yeah.
They have Bill C-16, another anti-racist bill.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's even for our poverty, they have Bill C-223 and Bill S-233, which goes along with the universal basic income.
Yeah.
Hence, working on poverty and everyone being equal. Okay. So, they're working on those bills that the politicians have brought in, and they're passing them with not much opposition. There's some opposition. They're all playing the game for as long as they can, because they made a promise that they would. They have to conform to the Declaration.
So you said in the States, Obama brought it in, and who brought it in Canada?
Yes. It was the Liberals. It was the NDP. I would say didn't vote for it. The same. Okay, when you read the annex paragraph 11, it recognizes this. It has to contribute to this equitable development of proper management of the environment. So as soon as you see that goes back to. Okay, so they're about required informed consent when it comes to the Aboriginals, because they couldn't clearly define that. Because depending on which band you're talking to, that means different for difference. Okay, so they can't have a concrete way to define that. But they also passed Bill C-45, which means if a tribe wants to together work with a corporation and they're conforming to the Sustainable Development of Partnerships or responsible consumption. Okay, all the legends for sustainable development. We to natives have to give their right to become incorporated. Okay, that's the goal, is to become incorporated. And when they do that as a First Nation, up their rights. And infrastructure based on the corporation is being built. Bill 1, you can't go in and infrastructure that's
you know what, Rayanne, I'm going to cut you off there. Yeah. Can you turn your camera off and we'll just go right to the audio again? You're breaking up. Sorry. This is important stuff, so I definitely want to get this on audio. Yeah. So yeah, I can hear you. So maybe let's just go back. Maybe even start right at the beginning again. So I had said about that Obama brought this in the U.S. and who brought this into Canada?
Yeah, so Obama brought it in 2006.
Yeah.
And we brought out first 2021.
Yeah.
And it had given the rule or the state to have it fully 2 years after it was here. 2000. It has to be. That's why we're seeing any person advocating based on their national origin or religious, or hence the pastors.
Yeah,
they're being seeing it because, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it really did break up again.
Are you there?
Yeah, you know what? The suggestion is reconnecting. Do you want to leave and then use that same link I sent to you and come back? Do you want to try that? Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave and come back?
Leave and come back, yes. We don't want you to leave, but you'll have to leave. And maybe you'll get a better signal.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you in hopefully 30 seconds. Leave studio and then use the link again. And there we are. We're back to me again. Okay, so in the meantime, what I wanted to let's see. Yeah, just to go back through these sustainable goals. Again, these are all hidden agendas, if you want to think of that. So what does no poverty mean? Well, essentially, the easiest way to think about it is you might as well get some money from somewhere. So why don't we have everyone on some sort of welfare system or some sort of government subsidy? Basically doing that. Oh, there's Rayanne. Same with zero hunger basically means, well, I'm not even sure how that's going to happen, because if they're taking away farmland and everything, there she is back again. Yep. Then the easiest way to get zero hunger is to limit the number of people on the planet. So, all right, I won't be dwelling on that serious note here. There. All right, so let's continue on. You know what? Let's just continue on the presentation. Then I've written down a bunch of questions here, so let's do this. There you go.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
This United Nations compound that we just watched in Utah is taking legal hold in our state, hence in Canada, and provinces. It's guided by the purposes and principles of Alberta.
Yeah.
Okay. The purpose, social governing system, or the digital ID, the central banking system, and net. Bill C-12, it has Pat acting on it. But in the preamble of that document, it says that human activities is the climate activities.
Yeah.
It poses health and security risks. Our human activities, guys.
Yeah.
So us growing a garden or driving our going hiking are human activities that pose a significant risk to human health and security.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to get you to.
So that's the problem from the.
Rayanne, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to get you to turn the camera off, and we'll try the audio, just the audio. Sorry about that.
Okay.
There we go.
That's okay.
I'll hide my face. Yes.
Okay. The principles of the UN Charter are the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, the EU Trade Agreement, the China's Belt Road Initiatives, which really, guys, China's Belt Road Initiative is net zero. That's what it is. And the International Health Treaty or the Pandemic Treaty, the Sunday Law, and the new 10 Commandments to climate change. Next slide. You hear me? Next slide.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear me unless I'm on the screen. So just so you know. So what I wanted to do is highlight about the net zero. And we still hear politicians talking about net zero all across this great province of ours and across Canada.
Oh yeah.
And so what would you say about like net zero? So obviously net zero basically means net zero human interaction. It
does. Well, it goes along. It goes along with the carbon tax or the carbon initiative, but we're all carbon producers. Okay,
we're all made of carbon too.
Exactly, and then it's about zero emissions or zero energy. Well, we all have energy. We all use energy. We all make energy. So the fact they're going zero on it should say something. Okay, the fact that the abortion laws or even they're implementing euthanasia for people with disabilities or mental illnesses, it should tell you where our health is going.
Yeah.
Because according to the WEF, hospitals are going out and vaccines and these new initiatives that they're legislating to kill people off are coming into play because it really is a depopulation agenda taking place.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Can I say that online? But that's what it is.
I'm pretty sure we won't get
by the legislation.
Yeah, I know. Terrible thing to laugh at, but so there's and it's basically done through the Paris Agreement, which we've done previous episode of APP's webinars with Michelle Sterling, and we talked about the Paris Agreement and the climate agenda. And if people have not watched that, I urge you to go back and watch a lot of the APP webinars that we've done. Each one has these little tidbits of information. And the big thing that I got out of the Paris Agreement video was we actually don't have to abide by it. We're doing it just because we want to, or the government wants us to. The agreement is more of a we can do it if it makes sense, but we don't really have to do it. But we've got our government, our federal government in hand right now that are saying, no, we have to do this at all costs. Even though our emissions are 1% of the entire global, we're going to do this anyways because we'll make a lot of difference. Yeah. And that was the big thing that I took away from that one too.
And I'm sorry, when I look at the Paris Agreement, yes, it talked about that's the transition of energy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it also, to me, it's the 5 central banks and the 5 major banks coming together and establishing the environmental social governing system, which happened in 2017, which is attached to our bank accounts. It's attached to our mandates of whether or not we did the vaccine or we took the vaccine or we did the mandates. Yeah. And I mean, it's connected to the next climate lockdown that they're planning or the 15-minute cities that they're planning. Yeah. Okay. Or the digital ID that they're planning. Okay. Yeah. It's all connected to that, which is connected to China. It's connected to net zero. So they all go inside together.
Now, I haven't really read too much on the China's Belt and Road initiatives. Is that like a belt line or a belt or perimeter highway or an enclosed system around a city. Is that what that's about?
No, that's not what that is.
Okay.
It's what it is. It's corporations coming together to build into the China's infrastructure. They're not responsible to have climate tapering things. They're actually getting our coal, and they're opening up more coal mines, and they're getting our oil. Okay, yeah. So this is their time for prosperity, and it's our time to not have prosperity anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have corporations or agendas, and let's just say this: every time they raise the debt ceiling, okay, they borrowed a lot of it from China. Okay, so they have to come collect on their debt. It's like a credit card. Okay, we've given you all this money. We've given you all this help. Now we're going to come and we're going to take what it is that technically you've gone into debt to have, but you have to pay back the debt. Okay, so legitimately they can come and take it. And they can do it through even the EU trade agreement.
Yeah.
Because the EU trade agreement is making the environmental social governance system law. It's making it law in their country. And we have a trade agreement with them. That means every country, every truck driver, every farm producer, every rancher who is not lined up with the environmental social governing criteria when it comes to sustainable development and the Paris Agreement, okay, they will lose their jobs. They will lose their livelihoods. They will, which is what the EU trade agreement is. It's a guaranteed unemployment. Okay, because they're trying to take away everybody's. This, to me, that's the number of the beast. Okay, we're buying or selling, and because we made a trade agreement with them, and they're making it law.
Yeah,
everyone who's not complying to the law according to the trade agreement, you're going to be in trouble. You're absolutely going to be in trouble because it goes down to the farmer. It goes down to the guy plunking the potatoes out of the and so we're in trouble. We're absolutely in trouble. So when I say that you need to put your house in order, you need to put your house in order according to the
house. Yeah. Obviously, the big question is, everybody says, who signed Canada up for this? And we really just did talk about that.
To be quite honest with you, it started like the UN knew that it started at a grassroots level. Okay. And that it had to do with Agenda 21.
Yeah.
It came to our municipalities, and the municipalities had a guidebook as to how to govern their farmers and ranchers, even in my local area in town that I come from. And so they knew that it came from us. Okay. So because we didn't recognize what was happening sooner, and we allowed them to infringe on our property rights, even to how many trucks we could have on our lawn and how many this, and we can't have a fire burning stove. Okay. We contributed to the beast system or the image of it. Okay. And by us doing that, we paid for it.
Yeah.
Because we weren't paying attention to what was going on.
Yeah.
And because we didn't pay attention and we paid for it, look at the beast that we opened up the door to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a saying out there, democracy is not the fastest way to communism, or but it is the easiest way. And all you have to do is convince the majority of the population that you have to abide by certain rules and being dictated to, and everyone will agree to this. So if we say that, the world will burn down by 2016, because that's what they said, then they have this path to basically go down and say, this is how we're going to get out of this trouble, but we have to start implementing this stuff now. And how do you do that? You indoctrinate kids in school. You say, yep, if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to see your graduation because the world will be burned down by that. And so this is where we are right now. This is the state of the world, is that this is not something that's just happened during COVID. This has definitely been we've said probably like since the 1970s, right? So probably late 60s, early 70s. So 50 years in the making. And it just so happens to be.
Can I try to show you something?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open up my cam.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. You see this?
Yep. Let me see. Let's make you bigger.
It?
Try again.
Okay. Can you see it?
It's a little blurry. Okay, it's a lot blurry. It says climate central by geophysical warfare. Okay, and then it's listed off. I can't really read a lot of that. Do you want to just maybe read off some of the petals?
So this was in 19. Yeah, this was in 1960.
Yeah.
Well, by geo there. They have.
We're gonna get you to turn your camera off.
They have earthquakes. They have. Okay, what they have on here is vitamin D deficiency.
Yep.
Wildfires.
Yeah.
Fracking. Earthquakes.
Wow. Yeah.
CO2 tax.
Yeah.
CO2 tax. That was in 1969. Okay.
Wow. So they already
water
thought of that.
cycle privatization.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they know what they're doing. They know where they're headed.
They've been planning this, and they were waiting for the right time.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
While we were sleeping.
All right. Well, let's continue on here. We'll go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. And there, the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, and according to the United Nations Foundation, their voice will be the only voice for everyone on Earth.
Mm.
So we won't need to advocate. We won't even need politicians anymore. They're going to be eliminated too.
Yeah. Well, and we just had an incident here where Pastor Derek in Calgary was arrested again. Not really sure if this ties into everything, but it's just one of those sustainable goal type of scenarios.
It does.
Where so Pastor Derek was arrested last week, or almost 2 weeks ago, I guess, for basically protesting at one of the drag shows, reading story time in the library. And so he went to jail for 4 days, came out, and basically said, got an injunction against him that says he can't trespass or be within a certain, or he can't actually go and attend these events, I guess is what it is. So the mayor of Calgary actually took that a step further. And yesterday they talked about making a bylaw that you can't do a protest within 100 meters of a library or a school or whatever that else it worked out to be. So this morning they actually changed the wording on that. So it's actually 200 meters. So Pastor Derek just happened to be at a rally, if you want to call it that, protest today, but he was, probably over 100 meters, but less than 200 meters away from it. And the cops came by and arrested him, Calgary Police Service. So all the while, everybody that was there were yelling at them, yelling at the police. This is unfair. You guys have no idea what's really going on. Eventually, you will not be needed. We will have no cops around. We're going to have surveillance systems with cameras, et cetera, et cetera. And when I saw that, I thought that's exactly what's going to happen here. Because now that they can do some sort of a setup where it's just 200 meters away, well, maybe the next one's you're 400 meters away, and who actually decides on whether or not you're protesting, or like I could just happen to be walking there and they'll say, well, we know who Kerry is and he's obviously protesting, so we're going to arrest him. So this is kind of where we're going right now. And that's why, it says their voice will be the only voice for everyone on Earth, because even the cops won't be able to protect us, because there won't be any cops. There will be this one world police, or one country police, or whatever you want to call it, that will actually implement all this stuff. So, wake up.
And can I say something?
Yes, please do.
Can I say something? Okay.
Yes.
When when it comes to UNDRIP, it's told in, I can't remember which article, that they have to educate their children according to their culture, according to sustainability. Okay. So I want to understand what that means, because the UN has an agenda. It's called the World Core Curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay. Where we're supposed to teach our children. It says old education was based on Christian values, so that has to go.
Of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Alice A. Bailey, a prophetess for the United Nations, says we have to eradicate male-female distinction.
Wow.
Eradicate it. That's their goal.
That's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. The former director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Brooke, to achieve world government, it is necessary to remove from the minds of men individualism, loyalty to family, remove national patriotism, and religious dogmas. We have to steer our children towards global citizenship, earth-centered beliefs, socialist beliefs, and collective rights and minds. So we can see where this is headed. Okay. And this is in UNDRIP. Okay. People think that the Indigenous, the First Nations can educate their children in accordance to their customs and But no, culturally, this is a culture that they want. The UN agenda culture, where the UN is their saving grace. And if we abide by their system of religion, which is they're the saving grace, then we'll do fine. But if we advocate based on Christian values, we're never they're coming after the Christian. They really, really are. Just so you know.
The Inquisition.
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny, we haven't talked about that before, the Inquisition, because that's basically what, it was of course the Christianity and Catholics that came in and kind of eradicated everything else. But basically it's the same sort of thing where they're trying to eradicate something else. Right. So, anyway,
and I think it's funny on. That. Okay. This is the Paris Agreement and the EU Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
Please know that the EU Trade Agreement guarantees environmental damage impacting every individual citizen. It guarantees unemployment and net losses. It guarantees the fact that there's no more consumer rights, especially on food safety. And it guarantees the intellectual property sharing. So when you see Canada being, connecting to China or the Wuhan and Winnipeg University, intellectual sharing, intellectual property. It's a fact, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Okay, these windmills, they're coming up on my neck of the woods. Okay, we're having protests about these wind turbines going up. Okay, people, they're not even supposed to produce electricity until they've been up for 20, 30 years that they're looking to, but they don't even last that long. So people are looking for electricity, for their cars and for the homes. It can't produce it because it's not meant to. It's not meant to. I think net zero is their goal.
Yeah.
So this is
if anything, it's just there as a distraction to keep us busy, thinking that something is really going to happen. Because the amount of effort and materials and engineering, which is great, I totally get it, to go into these windmills. And then, like you said, so I think you meant to say that they don't actually turn a profit on their electricity for 20 or 30 years.
No, they don't.
But they fall apart by then. How many times have you seen a couple of them burning, or they lose all their oil, or they get knocked down, or of course the environmentalists haven't really said too much about birds being chopped up as they go through them, but that's definitely an issue as well. Yeah.
And I even want to go back to even the dams. I prefer hydroelectricity, but technically that goes back to that flower I showed you.
Yeah.
Okay. Where that's the privatization of water. They built those dams, which impacted the rivers that they came from in not positive ways. And it made water, it cost us. We're paying for the water.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Next slide.
Next one.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. The United Nations Charter is a war document, the foundation of which came from the Russian Constitution. The signatory states on the charter are France, China, USSR, Great Britain, United States, and Northern Ireland. Okay, they're all playing their part here. So
Yeah.
no matter what you think, it's a chess game. We are all being impacted, including the Russia people and the Ukraine people. Everyone is being impacted by this game that they're playing. But those are the signatory states to this. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to think that, like, I laugh because if anyone invades Russia airspace, who defends them? China.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's partnering with Canada in their cryptocurrency? Canada. So we can see that they're all playing their parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep going. And yes, it shocked me because I was thinking USSR.
Yeah.
We think that like Cold War. Okay. That's why I laughed. And I did a research and I put all the countries down and I went to say, okay, now who is there?
Yeah.
And there's the Security Council side and then there's the NATO side. Ukraine is the only one that hasn't really aligned with anybody, but you can see who's backing them up. It's mostly the NATO side.
Yeah.
But they all are playing their Cold War game with us, hence net zero.
Yeah.
We're going to be cold winter is coming.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, we actually thought it was going to be this winter that's the cold winter, but now it's in March, so we're almost through the winter. So this could just be. Do you think it would be delayed for a year, or do you like? I'm not even sure. Maybe they're a lot smarter than I am, so they would have made up plans. They were planning.
Okay, I can only go. Maybe I won't even go here. I know that they have Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2050. Okay.
Yeah.
But knowing that UNDRIP has to be implemented within 2 years of it being passed in Canada, that's this year.
It is this year. Okay.
It is this year. Okay. And according to the United Nations, everything that they have to have in place is the year 2025.
Yeah. Which also happens to be a federal election year too.
Exactly. So if you take the zeros out of that 2030 and 2050, you have 23 and 25. So I think it's a way to get people to procrastinate working out their house and putting it in order, thinking we have more time, but we don't have time.
Yeah.
And once that digital system gets passed, it's done. We can't even go to the gas station. Like I can't even register my car next year unless I get the digital ID.
Yeah.
And I can't. So I'm going to be stuck on my land until they do what they're going to do with us. Okay.
Yeah. It's.
Okay. Canada, in good faith, is fulfilling its UN Charter obligations. Okay. So Canada launched its official cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And China government prefers a company, hence the company. We're a corporation, guys, so we're not a sovereign nation. For the purpose of marketing our new WannaPay team. Canada is the first country where sales began. So we're a corporation.
Yeah.
And the provinces, they're sub-corporations. That's why it's kind of funny, because even in the Indigenous, when they did white papers in 1969, if you want to look at UNDRIP that way.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Their goal was to incorporate the First Nations people like everybody else and to make them part of the franchise. Mm-hmm. Okay. Having them create all these business deals that's what they're doing. Yeah. They're incorporating them. They're getting rid of the reserve land. Yeah. It's also called the First Nations Governance Act, Bill C-7. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's switching the Indian Act to municipal corporations. Mm-hmm. Where they have to pay taxes. So they're doing it all kinds of ways to get us to play the game. It looks like we're getting benefits, hence payoffs from legal land claims or whatever. But once that money is spent, we have to fund ourselves by ourselves according to the new rules of the sustainable development. And like you said, We can't even get fertilizer to plant gardens. We can't get gas to put in our rototillers. So exactly how are we going to take care of ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves?
Yeah.
When all those things are gone, we can't, and we won't be able to.
We'll have to make partnerships with people that prefer to stay on that side of the fence. And
Exactly.
And again, then that's a whole kind of black market situation going on as well.
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, next one. Here we go. UNDRIP is unnecessary, a mark of divide between First Nations peoples and other Indigenous peoples. Because it's causing contention. It's causing fighting.
Yeah.
And every time they announce, like that hockey game you mentioned.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, I'll ask that again later. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. UNDRIP Article 26 and the non-native concerns. This is the one that got most people concerned and care. Yeah. So it says Indigenous people have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired.
Mm-hmm.
The key word is the right.
Yeah.
It means that the Aboriginal peoples, tribes, or bands have to take their case to obtain lands, territories, and resources to court at great cost to prove their rights. Aboriginal peoples use the Canadian Constitution or Section 35 in their claims action court case to do this. The federal government is more than obliging to let the Aboriginal people spend the cost because it accomplishes the sustainable developmental goals for them. That private land ownership is socially unjust according to UNDRIP. But who is everyone mad at? The Aboriginal peoples.
That's very true.
You can go to the next one.
So this is another video, and I'm going to try and do this as a separate thing here. So give me just a second to see if I can do this.
And just to say, the person on this video, his name is Ellis Ross.
Yes.
Okay, he was elected to BC general election in 2017. He's from Skeena, BC. He's actually part of the Liberal Party.
Yes, he is. Yes. Yeah.
But he criticizes UNDRIP.
Yeah. Skeena's up by Terrace and Kitimat, if anybody knows that area there. All right, let's see. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
Okay.
It's about UNDRIP and the toxicity and the chaos.
Okay.
Good. Please check out this video and share it. It's about UNDRIP and the toxicity and the chaos with UNDRIP in British Columbia. The BC NDP is leaning on it to try and pass like land rights and with forestry with the natives. And I can't do it any justice by trying to wrap my head around it and explain it because I'm not native. And I don't want to offend anyone because I just won't be able to explain it good enough. Watch this video. It is very, very important to know what UNDRIP is capable of. We've been saying this for years, and now it is starting to show its face. Like, share, and comment below if you have any experience with UNDRIP, the Indian Act, and in regards with land use and land rights and forestry, forestry reclamation. Like, share, and take care, and please comment below.
Morning, guys. Victoria, last day of this week for the session, and just walking the legislature. I read the forestry announcement that came out yesterday from the BC NDP government, and for the last few years, UNDRIP has been legislated in BC. Now, if you don't know about it, UNDRIP to me is nothing. it means nothing, because Canada, for the last 40 years, has been steadily advancing rights and title through the course, mind you, which was a lot of money, time consuming. But it all started with Section 35 of the Constitution, where the Canadian government recognized that Aboriginal rights and title exist. Well, they didn't define it, so First Nations had to take government to court for 40 years to define it. The last significant court case was Chilcotin and Haida. Haida more for the general population of First Nations in BC. So basically what Haida says is rights and title is held by a community, and you can't delegate that rights and title to anybody else. It belongs to the community. So it only stands to reason whoever represents the community has to speak on behalf of the rights and title. Well, the forestry announcement yesterday wiped that all away. And the NDP government are using UNDRIP as their reason. And UNDRIP, so far, has not been grounded in rights and title case law. It's not been grounded in the Constitution of Canada. It's been grounded in the philosophy of the United Nations. And the United Nations has no freaking clue what Aboriginal rights and title means in Canada. They don't have a clue. So the forestry announcement is basically saying to First Nations, and if you understand rights and title, First Nations, nobody can speak on your behalf. Nobody can give your rights and title away. The only people that can do anything with your rights and title is you as the First Nations community. So what the NDP did yesterday with the forestry announcement said, we're going to choose 50 First Nations, and they're going to decide what happens on the land in the forests all across BC. Now, there are 203 bands in BC. So the NDP are picking 25% of First Nations of BC to speak for all the First Nations. Let me give you an example. Haisla First Nation, that's where I come from. Haisla. So Haisla they claim a chunk of territory, and there's overlap with neighboring tribes. It's always been a problem. And this forestry announcement doesn't mention that, by the way. That's a different topic. So Haisla, all the neighboring communities, for example, will get to decide what happens on your land through this NDP announcement. Can you imagine that? You imagine all your neighboring tribes, and this goes for every tribe across BC. It'll like say Squamish, for example, or Musqueam, Osoyoos, Tahltan, all these bands. If you're not part of that 50, you will have other First Nations along with NDP government deciding what happens to your land, what happens to your rights and title. This is a breach of rights and title. It's a breach of Section 35 of the Constitution. I can't believe this is being allowed to happen here in BC. So I didn't want to see this day where I thought UNDRIP is harmless. UNDRIP is dangerous. It is absolutely dangerous to use an international document like this to wipe away rights and title in BC. I mean, when rights and title brought so much progress and wealth to BC, it brought forestry, it brought LNG, it brought mining, and it uplifted an entire generation of First Nations out of poverty. And now the NDP are trying to blind you with UNDRIP so they can take away your rights and title. That is not honorable. That's what the case law says. The government has to act honorable. This is not honorable. So First Nations, yeah, I'll try to write this down and explain it, because this is where I got my start. And to non-First Nations, you should look at this announcement as well, because really what they're saying is that, yeah, we've seen mills shut down all across BC. Yeah, we saw all those forestry workers lose all their jobs, but guess what? We're going to double down. We're going to make sure there's more cutbacks to forestry. We're going to make sure there's more mills shutting down. We're going to make sure that more communities suffer, those communities that depend on forestry. So this is going to affect you too. Okay, so I'm going to go to the office. I'm going to try to see if I can put this down in some type of understandable form, but this is the biggest breach of rights and title that I've seen, at least since in the last 20 years. Okay, so anyway, see you later.
There you go. Someone actually made a comment here. It's happening because people are allowing it. You know what? I disagree with that statement, because people aren't allowing it because they're not knowledgeable on what's actually going on. That's the issue. If you knew that something like this was going on, you would probably, at least call someone or have a conversation about it. But I think the issue is that people don't know. They've got their head buried in the sand. And that's the issues that we've got on right now, is that this is why we're doing these sorts of webinars, to get this information out, right? If we could, we would do a webinar every day, but I certainly don't have the time to do that. So, but this is the way we win, by spreading this information, so that, because typically I look at, and again, it's always easier to look at your own self and see what was going on. Before COVID, I was just a busy business guy. I was out doing stuff. I'd go to hockey games. I'd do whatever it was socially, and I'd have my head in the sand. But now, since I lost my business doing this, and my other businesses have been vastly impacted, it's now woken me up. And I think that's really what it takes, is to get people to wake up. Is, unfortunately, things have to be taken away from them, or they have to be run into a situation where I've either lost something or someone, and then that's when it goes, well, how does this all work, and why did this happen? And boom, then these. And
I found it interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I know realistically that even in my neck of the woods, because I mean, Lethbridge is referred to one of the racist cities in Canada. Okay, so when you see the word Indigenous and you see a bill going through, people, non-natives, are not paying attention. Okay, and so with them not paying attention, you don't know what they're doing.
No, that's
and you don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even my brother, who I haven't spoken to for years, called me asking me if I owned my land.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking, why is he calling me and asking me that question? Okay. But it had all to do with UNDRIP and had to do all these things. So, I mean, I've been studying and same thinking, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
For him to ask me these questions and for people to be worried about their lands.
Yeah.
And because I'm sorry, I'm Caucasian, I'm white or non-native, married to a native who from largest reserve, I have 6 First Nations boys. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have a legitimate claim in all of the bridges that go along with all of this.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I need to speak up and be aware as much as I can. I mean, I have it all in my head and I can't always get it out the way I want to. But I mean, I understand what's going on and people need to pay attention because to me, sorry, because I'm the Christian person. Okay. When God says that the beast will overcome the saints, all those who claim to be Christian, he's making war with the saints. Yeah. Why? Because they have been greedy. They've been working for cars and for houses, and which God told us not to do. Yeah. Okay. And so with this legislation, with the legislations that are being passed, he is overcoming us. He really, really is. And I'm a voice of warning because I'm Christian too. Yeah. To tell the people, guys, whether you're native or non-native, it's coming. The system to trample you under their feet is coming. It's here. It's at our doors. And you can't stop it, even if you want to, because it's prophecy. It's meant to happen. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, let's go on to the next slide before we get really fire and brimstone. Right.
We've seen this one, so we're good.
Yeah, I know. There we go. All good. All good.
UNDRIP, the First Nations Indigenous Truth. Okay, according to the implementation guide, UNDRIP is not about having veto power over government decision making. Hence, government is taking control. UNDRIP does not create new obligations,
Mm-hmm.
and UNDRIP considered measures may adversely impact potential or established Aboriginal or treaty rights.
Mm-hmm.
UNDRIP, according to Article 43, I didn't put that in there, constitutes the minimum standard for survival.
Yes.
Minimum standard, guys.
I've heard that.
Yep.
Yeah, you get your water and your loaf or your slice of bread.
Exactly. So when the UN have taken all your resources because you've contracted or you've built partnerships that create infrastructures that have nothing to do with you and can put you into jail once you realize what they've done.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't provide for your family and you can't drive your car, and except for those that are playing the game but I mean, this is the minimum standard for those that are playing the game.
Yeah.
Those who are following the rules, this is the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're looking at feeding the poor or taking care of your neighbor, you can't, because you're in trouble. That's legally right.
It's not your minimum.
morally condemnable and socially unjust. Okay, according to UNDRIP. So you can't do that anymore. That's why when that digital ID, you can't be buying food for somebody else. You can't give someone on the street $5 anymore to go buy a hot dog, because everything, your carbon footprint is being tracked.
Yeah.
And it's meant to trample on what good we could have done for our neighbor, but we can't do anymore.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay. The federal government just passed a new modern treaty implementation policy. Go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. What does the modern treaty really do? It fulfills government's UNDRIP need for free, prior, and informed consent. Sitting around a table with the Lands Claims Agreement Coalition, having a discussion about concerns. We're talking to you, we're addressing, but we're still going to do what we're going to do because we have an agenda to fulfill.
That's right. Yeah.
But in reality, upholding UNDRIP to take all measures necessary, hence we sat with you, necessary to have people align with the UN purposes and principles of the Charter, promising no new obligations. Okay. 2, it speeds up the reconciliation process to transitioning First Nations communities into 4th level Indigenous municipal government on private property lands, hence former reserve land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the white paper. Okay, what Pierre Elliott Trudeau started.
Yeah,
he was the prime minister at the time. And
69.
Yeah, 1969, and John Chrétien was the Minister of Indian Affairs. Okay, that's what this is. That's all that this is transitioning. Because what did he say? Pierre Elliott says his vision of a just society was one in which all discriminatory legislation was appealed.
Mm-hmm.
So when they mention the Constitution 35, that's discriminatory legislation that makes you separate from everybody else. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can't do that anymore. Okay, so UNDRIP really is about abolishing all legal documents that previously existed, including the Indian Act and all existing treaties within Canada. Okay, that's what UNDRIP does. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. And is, when you're saying about the reconciliation process, is that kind of the go-to word in the media, talking about reconciliation? Yes. And so, you know what, I'm gonna bring this up now just because we're talking about reconciliation. So I had a question. We did this off camera just at the beginning, and we were just in a casual conversation. So I asked, what is with the actual land acknowledgements at the beginning of hockey games, baseball, when you're in a school theater, those sorts of things? Because to me, they kind of came out of nowhere. And it was under this umbrella or disguise of reconciliation. But to me, it's never set right with me. I've always thought there's something not quite right that's happening with that. So how did you explain that to me there?
Okay. I'll go with what it is. It says here.
Okay.
What's the word? There's a Truth and Reconciliation Coalition.
Okay.
Where it says that they have to, the provinces, the municipality, the provinces, and the federal government have to fully adopt and implement. Hold on, where am I? Sorry, give me a minute.
Yes, absolutely.
The federal, provincial, and territorial governments have to fully adopt and implement the United Nations as a form of their reconciliation. Mm-hmm. It says, we call upon the governments of Canada to develop a national action plan, strategies, and concrete measures to achieve the goals. Mm-hmm. Them acknowledging the native lands.
Yes.
Like I was sitting at the Mount Royal University College.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The first thing that came out of their mouth was acknowledging that we were sitting on treaty land. Okay.
That's
and
right.
And me and my husband and son were the only ones sitting there from that reservation. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, this is them acknowledging.
Yeah.
Municipality wise and provincially, you're sitting on their land.
Yeah.
It's a verbal thing.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen any contracts where the First Nations benefits from the fact that that university sits on the land.
That's very true.
Okay. And I'm waiting to see what happens with that. And I've asked the question to a number of people because I'm thinking if you're sitting on our land and that infrastructure that can be enforced by military action, okay, if we choose to say, well, that you're on our land, so either give us the right to go to school free, give us a payment of monthly lease of being on the land.
That's right.
Or I'm waiting to see the government say, you know what, this is your land, this infrastructure's on it. We're going to charge you taxes.
Yeah.
We're going to charge you taxes because we're acknowledging that this is your land and we want you to pay up on the taxes for your portion of it. So, this can go two ways.
Yes.
But I haven't seen which way it's going yet, technically.
Yeah.
But for them to be acknowledging it is a huge thing. It's huge.
Yeah.
Because
the other thing that I've heard, and again, I don't want to give people false information. I don't usually like to at least do that, but this is kind of the scenario that I heard was that in Vancouver, that has already passed, as though it's UNDRIP is come in. They've acknowledged that the land that's currently there now belongs to the First Nations, and then basically they're going to try and get the First Nations involved so that they can administer the land, et cetera, et cetera. And because they have not been given the proper education or maybe the proper infrastructure in order to actually do well holding the land, they're basically going to come in after a while and say, no, you know what? You guys did a terrible job doing this land. We're just going to come in and save you guys. And so the UN will come in, and basically that's just one way that they can get that land.
I can see them doing that.
Yeah.
But it's like that Ross guy said that we just listened to.
Yes, Ellis. Okay.
Yeah. They had 50 communities out of the 200 and some that are in BC agree to play the game the way the UN or the government wants to play it. Yeah. And hence Bill C-45, they can sit around a table with those that are working with the process. Okay. And everybody else, they're going to choose to ignore, and they're going to do what they want with it. So when I see Christian Freeland coming into Northern Alberta for the caribou thing, she's doing it under UNDRIP. Okay. Yeah. That's what she's doing it under. Yeah. But I haven't seen any Aboriginal groups saying yay for this, or what are their treaty rights under the original treaty rights. That's right. That's I'm not seeing any of those discussions. I haven't heard anything in my neck of the woods. So to me, it's another, they're doing what they can to accomplish their sustainable developmental goals. That's what they're doing. And so they'll use the Indian to do it, and they're going to use the corporation to do it. Okay. But in the end, we're not going to have anything. No one's going to have anything.
So here's another hypothesis that could happen. Again, I don't really want to fearmonger, but let's just say that does happen, so that the UN does come in, they take the land away from the First Nations. We've done all these land acknowledgements. We're in this situation where we're so sorry for what our ancestors did in order to get the land, and now we're here. But we're so sorry, and we've given it to you, and now the UN's going to come and take it away because you guys didn't do a very good job stewarding your land. You should have kept it. We should have kept it. We're angry at you guys now, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that could possibly happen too? Where I'm just going to be racist, if you want to call it. The white man is going to be saying to the First Nations that you caused this to happen. And I think that could end up having some sort of a civil war. And I mean, and again, I don't want to go all conspiracy theory on that, but these are conversations that we should be having. Have these conversations at your dinner table. People are just too afraid to even have these conversations and see what could possibly happen.
I just know that they have their agenda. The United Nations has their agenda of what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it looks different it looks different in each country. Yeah. It does. Yeah. Yeah. But what I see, one of the local reserves near me, it's called the Pagan Reserve near Pincher Creek. Okay. Yeah. They sold their water rights to the Old Man River Dam. Mm-hmm. Hence their water. They sold water rights. Yeah. Okay. Who does that? Yeah. When you have a people that need water. Okay.
That's all we've heard for the last few years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And so they're doing it because they're trying to make a buck, and they're trying to help their poverty, and they're trying to help their community.
Yeah.
But at what cost? Okay. Yeah. So is there smarts really going into some of this decision making? No. Okay. But that's why, I mean, I'd love to see the contracts. I'm not sitting there at the table to see what the contracts say. And I wish I could do an information act to see what the contracts say. But like I said, if the hockey game, the Flames hockey arena is sitting on First Nations land, or the city of Calgary is sitting on First Nations land, we can have revenue coming off that land annually.
I agree.
Without question.
Yeah.
Okay. But will that upset the native?
I'm just saying I agree with what you're saying. I'm not agreeing in principle as to that's exactly what should happen. Just so we're clear.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. But to me, I'm looking at those kinds of lack of decision making and lack of transparency that's not happening. Yeah. Okay. But it's those kinds of questions, like you said, in principle, you don't agree with that, but you understand why I'm saying that. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. But it's that principle that the non-natives are afraid of, to thinking, okay, what are the natives going to do with this? Yeah. And I don't deny the United Nations are going to let us fight it out. Hence, we have to defend ourselves by ourselves. Yeah. I mean, Obama said that about Israel. Okay. Yeah. You can have your independence, which is what natives are trying to do, is trying to establish their independence. Okay. Outside the Indian status. Okay. But there's a price to pay for that. Mm-hmm. One way or the other for everybody. Yeah. And even I'm sitting to wait to see how this goes and where it goes, because people are sitting on different sides of this line. Okay.
Well, I'm a little concerned about how fast this agenda is coming up, because we just talked probably about half an hour ago about the election in the federal election 2025 and where that could go. And I'm actually thinking this could even be our last provincial election.
Yep.
And the reason I say that is because if they go forward and they implement a digital ID, and you have to be in the system in order to at least be acknowledged as being a citizen of the land, a citizen of Canada, or whatever they decide to do it, and you have to actually be registered in order to do that vote. Well, there's going to be a lot of us that don't follow that. Yeah. And good luck trying to vote. And pretty soon the government is just going to end up being worse than it even is, because we're not going to have any opposition. That's basically what I wanted to get out, is that opposition in government is utmost needed, because otherwise the government's just going to go and do whatever they want. You need a strong opposition in there to say, no, you guys show us where your data is, and show us how this impacts everybody. and I think that's lacking right now in our government, and especially in the federal.
I'm of the same opinion you are.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see, okay, you have to be registered with your digital ID to have a vote. Okay.
Yeah.
And if they play that game,
yeah.
I mean, that's why to me, this presentation, this is a warning about why it happened.
Yes.
Because United Nations is basically made Canada a compound.
Yeah.
And so we have to follow, I call it a UN occupation, if you want to call it that. Okay.
Yeah.
And because it is controlling what we say and what we do. And it's all contingent upon those principles we talked about on that list.
Yeah.
And so I'm waiting to see what happens. And when it says on the Alberta website, I'm serious. It says on the Alberta website that you have to have the digital ID to register your car. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do the digital ID, so I won't be registering my car people.
Yeah.
So I mean, it lets us know it's coming, and there ain't nothing really much can do about it.
Yeah.
But be a voice of warning as to why it happened. This is why it happened.
Yeah. I'm not you bring up registering a car. I'm not a fan of doing the registration every year. I think that's just a money grab. All you need to do is register a car when you buy it, and the next person that buys it from you registers it. Or if it gets into an accident, it's written off, then your insurance company takes title of it, and they're now the owners, and then they can deal with it. But there's no reason you have to do this every year. Just like licensing. I mean, unless you want a new picture on your license, hey, you've got a driver's license. If there's something that has specifically changed on you, all of a sudden you need glasses, or you've lost a limb, or something like that affects you, then you should go in and change it. But to go in every year, it's just a money grab, and I hate money grabs. All right, let's continue on. Otherwise, I'll just stand on my soapbox, and we don't want to do that.
Okay. Guys, I want us to pay attention.
Yeah.
The fear of God is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. I pray that this presentation has both brought you wisdom and understanding, because we have to have a fear of God and be able to do the right thing for the right reasons when it's hard. Yeah. And it's about to get really hard, guys.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I leave this with you.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's the last slide?
I think so.
Okay, so should I just check?
Well, I know there's one more.
Yeah,
we don't have to go there.
Okay, awesome. Good. So let me I'll remove that one. And let's bring you back on. Go back on camera here. So that was great. I saw the presentation a few weeks ago when we were doing a Let's Talk Truth conference, and that's when I reached out to Rayanne and wanted her to come on and talk about this stuff. And of course, there's, as you can see, anytime that we talk about any of this sort of stuff, it just tangents off. There's so many other things, and that's the issue that we've got, is that they're not just coming at us with one or two things. They're coming at us with multiple. And the land use is a big thing. I'm cutting in and out. Okay. Do you want to turn off your camera again? Then we'll do that, and we'll just I'll throw up.
Sorry.
I know, that's okay. And let's just.
You can't look pretty for the camera.
Oh, but you're always pretty. Let's do. There we go. I'm just gonna put a screen up that just shows APP here, just so you're not staring right at me. There we go. So yeah, and we bring up the whole point of APP and educating people on what's happening, and of course we want to tie every conversation, every webinar that we do with how can APP help this situation. And I have yet to be stumped by having Alberta be its own. You can either say have its own sovereignty within Canada, basically allow us to do our own stuff in our own house, or be its own independent nation if you had to. And and I'm always one to that kind of got me aligned with APP initially was the referendum on independence. And of course, the only way that works is if you educate people and what a referendum on independence really does and what the benefit in doing that. Because a lot of people that I know and have talked with, they basically have said to me, well, you're nuts if you want to leave Canada. And it's like, well, how can we be nuts if we don't? Right? Or at least get a better deal. Right? And obviously with this UNDRIP, if we can get away, at least in theory, if we can get away from the federal government and then deal with our own land issues within our own sovereign, whatever you want to call it, sovereign province or sovereign nation, then I think that gives us a better handle on what can happen. Now, that doesn't mean that will totally get rid of the situation, because we don't know what the other powers that be will have in store for us, right? They may just come banging at our door, in which case we might need to defend ourselves. We might need
that's the one thing I found interesting with all of this is because when you see that this issue is a global issue, hence it's happening in Utah, guys, it's happening in the States. Okay. Yeah. When we look at UNDRIP, they're looking even for international law.
Yeah.
Okay. The state, because they have parent states, those that have foreign relations and can defend themselves by themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. But under international law, the individual or the province, for Canada's sake, we do not have any rights or obligations under the international law because we can't defend ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless we go back to the premise that God will be our defender, because he can do all things, as long as he has a righteous people.
Yeah.
But we're lacking that.
Yeah.
But I think, to be quite honestly, to me, that's the only solution, because it is happening globally.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
No matter where you go. Yeah.
No matter where you go. So we can't escape this, which is exactly my point. The devil's being given power to make war with the people, the saints.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's meant to. We have to get on our knees, guys. I'm sorry. I'm going to be a little bit like Arthur here and say, depend on God and be humble.
Yeah.
Because when it comes down to us, my sons, I have 4 autistic sons.
Okay.
With intellectual disabilities. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 2 of them and I myself had a dream where international Asian troops were coming down my reserve road.
Yeah.
Okay. And they took our water and they took our fuel and they took our food and they took everything wherewith we had to subsist upon it by ourselves.
Yeah.
For the intention that we would turn to them for support. Okay. So I can't depend on my neighbor that's 5 kilometers away or 6 kilometers away in that moment in time.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the only person I can depend on is getting on my knees and say, okay, God, they took all my stuff.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be like Moses and depend manna from the wilderness, because I'm not going to the system that is not going to feed me by thy spirit.
Yeah.
And so I just know that because the dream happened so vividly to 3 of us, it's going to come to pass. And we have already talked about Asian police forces in Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised. The fact that we are an international territory and the UN is internationally governed, they can send international force, okay, that have no scruples towards our way of life or our Christian values.
That's what we were afraid of in Ottawa. When the convoy was, we weren't sure who was actually the police force. In the end, from what we can tell, it was Canadians. But that's what we were afraid of, is that if somebody was coming in from another country, they don't care what happens in Canada because they can just go back home after.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I'm waiting to see what happens. And when I look at Trudeau making the agreements with the other premiers of the provinces for the digital ID, okay, yes, lots of us that don't take it, we're going to suffer consequences because we don't.
Yeah.
But realistically, Trudeau, for him to play this move, sorry, this is a personal opinion right here.
Yeah.
He must have the force prepared to back it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be going at it this level, this way, because he knows he's going to get opposition to that decision making.
Yeah.
And the provinces are going to get opposition to those decision-making processes. And so I'm waiting to see what they have, and I'm watching.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm waiting for that international troop to drive down my driveway. That's what I'm waiting for.
We're going to go back and look at some of the questions here. This was one I heard: when Native chiefs use Indigenous or Aboriginal, the government can take their land. Using Native word is the legal safe word to keep our native land. And again, before we actually went live here, we had this discussion, and I came up with all these different terms. And in theory, they could all be the same, but you'll know what I'm talking about here. So First Peoples, First Nation, Native, Indigenous, Aboriginal or Métis, and Indian. So depending on the context, they could all be the same. And as Rayanne said at the beginning about the reason they're changing it to Indigenous, basically means that everybody, it's people of the land. So if I'm Indigenous and the whatever agreement that is in Canada, and they say we can take Indigenous land, well, I guess you could take my house because I'm Indigenous to the land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I looked up my own definition when I was doing my studying. Okay.
Yeah.
Aboriginal means first original primitive people are the first to inhabit a country.
Yeah.
To me, that would be First Nations.
Yeah.
But but I'm going back to the Constitution for constitutional purposes.
Yeah.
For treaty land rights and resources, they use Indian and Aboriginal and Métis.
Yeah.
So, but I don't endorse Indigenous. Lots of First Nations use Indigenous. Indigenous studies, all of it.
Yeah.
To me, with my knowledge, what I know, I can't go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still scrolling through. There's lots of comments, lots of good comments there.
UNDRIP is the reason tool division against Canadians, tool which eliminates hunting. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It takes away all. Well, that's the one thing when it separates out Indigenous to women, children, Okay, you're trying to separate the people, like persons, on purpose.
Yeah.
They don't even want traditional family. Okay.
No, they don't.
Culturally, we belong in a family. We belong with parents. We have children. Okay. Yeah. They separate those out on purpose.
Yeah.
And so, hence, they even have the mature minor law for children. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because they don't want parents to have say over their children. Well,
and again, so I might as well just step out on that as well. My concern about the government coming in with these new childcare, subsidies and all that is basically to say, we're going to make it so cheap that children can go to be in care of the school or whoever, and the parents can go and work, and basically we can indoctrinate your kids even better, or we can do whatever we want to them. Because even as it is now, I'm not sure what the age is, and someone's probably going to point it out, but they can vaccinate your kids without parent consent.
Yeah.
And that might be as low as 5, but I think it's 12, but I could be wrong on that. So
I just want you to know that according to the United Nations World Core Curriculum, they want to go to kids as young as 7.
Yeah.
When no child is left behind.
Yeah.
And they want to indoctrinate them with global citizenship.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And so that mature minor law is about to be expanded as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. At the beginning, there was lots. Who signed us on to this? Who signed us on to this? Yeah. And really, who's pulling the strings now? Now, is it actually Klaus Schwab from the WEF that is saying to the Canadian government, you guys have to do this? Or is it a bunch of other minions? I don't know if we'll actually know that. Yeah. So here's another question. Please elaborate on getting your house in order. What should we do specifically?
Well, because
I was going to say, well, you can figuratively get your house in order, right? I have a bit of a bug out plan if it happened, but that's just me. And you people out there.
I have my bug out bags too.
Yeah, you can decide how and what you want to be doing. But I think it's the second part to that is whatever you do. I was going to say, whatever you do, be spiritually okay with it, right?
Yeah. Go get on your knees and ask God what he needs you to do and do it.
Yeah.
Because he'll tell you if you're humbly asking him.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find a couple more questions. Here's one. Seems like an opportune time for this to become an issue of great importance for the election in May. It is. So I don't know if you've seen the NDP video of the NDP candidate that walked up to someone's house, and the candidate was kind of laughing. He's kind of this nervous laughing, going up and talking. It's stressful going up and doing the door knocking. I'm not going to lie about that. But the girl was asking about what plans they have for healthcare. And they said, about getting vaccinated, and it would have been great if everybody got vaccinated. And then she went off and told her story about her kids that died. Now, she didn't say whether or not they died of the vaccine, but my guess is they probably were a bit of maybe suicidal or something like that. And maybe that's what happened. But either way, the NDP candidate was kind of laughing. And not laughing as in ha, as in like, I don't even know what she's talking about. I should just be whatever. But those are the questions we should be asking. Again, dinner table conversations. This is the type of stuff that, it's great to talk about what's happening on the Last of Us or or any Netflix documentary. But these are the conversations that I really enjoy is finding out what people think about certain things.
Right?
Yeah. I may be wrong, but it seems to me that refusing the digital ID will make other things mute. You can't control anything without. Well, if you get 4.4 million Albertans agreeing with you and saying we don't want a digital ID, then maybe that will happen. But again, I think we need to educate people as to what's going on in order for that to happen. Yeah.
And they have a doctrine in the UN called the spirit of inclusion.
Yeah.
It's a Luciferian doctrine. So those who do not play the game, lots of people are going to take the digital ID. Okay. Yeah. They are.
Oh yeah.
But the point is, God is making war with the Christian.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the same rules of governance with God that the Christian does. Okay. Yeah. And so we're told certain rules that we should have followed and obeyed. And if we do, okay. And so when you look at it in that context, he wants to see who you are. He's establishing who you are. Are you following him or you're not following him? Yeah. And lots of people will be compelled to, because they're trying to pay their cars and they're trying to put food on the table and all. So if they haven't been paying attention and this comes down and they are Christian, okay, that's why lots of people are going to be overcome. He overcomes all Christians, nations, kindreds, tongues, and people. Okay. And except for those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Okay. So that tells you that, like Archer and him willing to go to jail for his rights, and the pastors or even the truckers who are in jail. Okay. They're demonstrating their walk of faith with God in this moment in time. And their testimony is being borne witness as to what they have done and what they are doing to show us what's about to come to pass to the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm paying attention, and I'm hence putting my house in order, because will it stop them from taking me away? No. But at least I've done everything I could to not contribute to what it is they're doing. Okay. Yeah. But yeah.
I just wanted to bring up the statement here. As long as people go vote, the numbers should be legit. The ballots are hand counted and provincial. And that's very true. And we've actually talked about that. So municipal and federal are done through, I'll call them voting machines, not necessarily Dominion voting machines, but they're that sort of thing. No, these, when you actually have scrutineers in provincial, the ballots go into a box and the scrutineers watching the box. And then they almost never lose sight of that box. If they trade off, then people at least get to see that box doesn't move. Then it goes into the room. They get tipped over. They look at it. Like, that's a fair way, and it's
Yes.
honestly it's the slowest way, because obviously that's what we want. We actually do want things hand counted. So
I mean, we don't know if they're going to have, just like they changed the riding districts.
Oh yes, they
all of a
did.
sudden.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know what they're going to do. Hence, they could implement the digital ID that you have to go in to vote. So I'm waiting to see if that's what they do.
Yeah.
I hope that they don't.
Yeah.
But, and even in May, I mean, sorry, King Charles is going to be inaugurated, or whatever, kingship in May.
Yeah.
So even he has his plans as to what's going to happen in May, according to the government, the world government system he has planned for the Commonwealth country of Canada. So I'm waiting to see what happens. Because I mean, we looked at what happened with COVID within 6 months.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. 6 months is nothing.
Yeah. And I still say, it only takes a small amount of time for people to get to form a habit, right? Like you only need to smoke, a couple of packs and you end up getting a smoking habit, or you need to have a couple of beers at night and then gets in. I'm not saying that I endorse that. No, it's just things become habits, and working out. When I was running, I was actually a really good marathon runner, believe it or not. Yes, believe it or not. I was always in the top 5% finishing races. And with that, it took a lot of dedication. But really, at the beginning of the season, all it really took is maybe to go out for a week. And then your body wanted to just keep doing that. And the reason I bring that up is about how quickly it is to form habits, is because there are still people out there wearing masks wherever they go. Right. And there are certain cases, and there's always the exception. Someone is sick. They need to go out to the store to get a carton of milk. So they put a mask on. Great. Understanding. But when I see it all over the place again, and it's actually gotten worse, I think, in the last little bit, because of the fear mongering of the media saying that this is what's going on. And I actually stated this before when I was back in Winnipeg in December, that Manitoba implemented a completely different system where not only were masks recommended, but you were back to only having a certain number of people in a store at a time. And that was in December. And as far as I know, that has not changed. I think they're still doing that. As ridiculous as that is. Anyways, yes. Yeah. What would you share what steps you were doing to get your house in order? Well, I think that's going to be for every individual, what they're doing. And right, because I live in the city, so there are certain things that I need to do in the city. If you're in rural, there are certain things. Again, Rayanne, if your nearest neighbor is 5 kilometers away, that's good and bad, right? You can't just go over and ask for a cup of sugar from your neighbor, versus I can. But at the same time, I'm also probably on a street where my neighbors will be the first. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say one neighbor in particular will probably turn me in for doing something, right? Because that's just the way it is.
Yeah. But people need to see that the house of order is both spiritual and physical.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a physical, put your house in order. So get your bug out bags, get your food, get your water, get what you can. Because I don't know when they're coming to your door, but they will be coming to your door. But the more important thing, which I know even the UN knows, because that's why they have a one world religion, one world government, is because they know that religion or the spirit is important. So have a house of fasting, a house of prayer, a house of order. Okay. A house of God. That's what you need to do, to put your spiritual house in order. Because when the physicals fall away, which they're going to, I look at it, say, God told me we're heading into a season of Sabbath. You know how on Sabbath in the scriptures, there's no buying or selling anyway. We're supposed to rest for that day. Okay. Whatever you saw Christ doing on the Sabbath, conform yourself to know that that's what you should be doing. And when you're advocating or working with the spirit, he'll let you know what to do and he'll send you where you need to be. But that's my,
But this is great. I mean, talking about UNDRIP and then bringing in the spirituality of everything, because it all ties together, and we all need to know what is going on in the big picture. And lots of people don't. No, sorry. Lots of people don't want to look at it. But Yeah.
But I'm sorry. That's why it's a theocracy. It is a theocracy.
Yeah.
It is physical and spiritual. Even the UN is doing it, guys. So we can't say we can separate the two. Otherwise, they would be doing it. They'd separate them, but they're not.
Yeah.
They know why they're coming after Christians, because we're a force to be reckoned with when we get on our knees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's
Gary.
that's great. That, and you know, here's a question. What's bug out bags? Basically, it's if things got so bad in your town or even in your maybe in an apartment complex or whatever you need, and you need to get out for whatever reason, you just have a bag that, you know, has kind of the stuff that you need, right? Now, whether or not, like it, and again, it depends on your own personal thing. I've got mine has pictures, believe it or not. Pictures of my family and my kids, because no matter where I go, I want to be able to see that. And as much as it would be great to have my phone, I'm not convinced that I would be running around with my phone. So I want that. You know, obviously water and stuff to sustain yourself, but you know, tools. And I mean, there's lots of websites out there that show that stuff. So if you want to go that way, I think it's good to have that no matter what. Like and again, I'm in Calgary, so the chance of an earthquake or a tsunami are pretty slim. But you never know. Like there could be an explosion, or maybe a rail car tips over and they have to burn the chemical inside it. You know, you never know what's really going to happen. So you need to get out. So that would, you know, if there's anything, any value in that, I would suggest you just have a backpack that's kind of ready for that. So hurricane.
Amen, Gary. Amen.
And so with that, we are over 2 hours. And so I think we're going to wrap up. I definitely want to thank Rayanne for coming on. Thank you so much. Other than the technical glitches, I think this worked out just amazing. And so good to get the information out. And of course, I'd like to thank everyone for staying on and watching and making comments and asking questions. That's great. Of course, we do these weekly webinars every Wednesday with new speakers. And just so you know, next week, I'm actually really excited about next week. We have Greg Hill from freetofly.com. And we're talking about a few things, including traveling during and after COVID, traveling in 2023. Pilot health and safety, which is seems to be a concern for a lot of people now. And the other thing is what's happening in the USA. There's a bill that's going through, or has gone through the House of Representatives, and now it's in the Senate. And basically to lift the COVID restriction mandates from all foreign nationals. So anybody that's traveling into the US, and that's in the Senate. And so Greg will be talking more about that because he obviously knows a lot more than we do. And so it'd be great to have Greg in next week. And I'd also like to acknowledge the volunteers that go into to doing these webinars, as well as anything for APP. I'm going to bring up what I probably should have done in the first place is we've got on the website itself, we actually have lots of different events, chapter events. And again, this is the one with Greg Hill for next week. None of these events would happen with volunteers. And so APP really requires volunteers. And if you can donate your time, that would be great. And you can always go on the website and find out more. My volunteer time pretty much consists of webinars and doing all that sort of digital media type of stuff. So, you know, if you're inclined to do that, please join us, and that would be amazing. And you know what? I think that's probably all I need to say about all that. So I'm going to bring you back on camera. Come back on camera. That way we can see your pretty face, and we will do a proper goodbye. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Rayanne.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And we will definitely do this again. We'll you know, there's these are the types of conversations that we can update every 6 months anyways, and find out what's going on. So, and with that, I'm going to wish everyone that watched a fabulous rest of your evening, And we hope to see you at an event soon. And otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday for another webinar of Alberta Prosperity Project. Thank you very much. Have a great night. And now I have to do here. There we go. Let's do this.
Good night.